It's still a festive period, but we are in business. I will start by telling you that as the current administration rounds off its third year at the helm, key officials in the president's cabinet have expressed excitement that concepts put forward by the president are becoming a reality. Minister of Budget and Economic Planning Abubakar Atiku Bagudu and Senior Special Advisor to the President on Policy Coordination Hadiza Balausman spoke to NTA on the third year of the Tinubu administration.
Well, the message to Nigerians is captured in Mr. President's campaign manifesto, which he campaigned and got voted on, Renewed Hope Agenda. He said, in 2023, we are not where we want to be as a nation. To be where we want to be, we have to take choices, bold, courageous choices that enable other countries to achieve what we want to achieve. And since those choices have been taken, we have seen striking results in some areas. The macroeconomic polity is headed the right direction. Other measures that investors look at are headed in the right direction. Of course, that we have done well does not mean we cannot do better. Mr. President has always said so. He said we should, particularly calling on the governors, we should do more to mobilize and ensure that the reforms benefit the grassroots. And that's why he attended meeting of the National Economic Council to agree with governors what more can be done to ensure that the welfare of Nigerians is enhanced. We are very proud of the achievements. We are very proud of the acknowledgement. Rating agencies are daily improving their rating. Infrastructure work is going on. Of course, those who are benefiting from the distortion of yesteryears are not happy. But the majority of Nigerians are happy, and indeed, Mr. President is always drawing our attention that it's not yet Uhuru. We have to do more to ensure that Nigerians' welfare is greatly enhanced and the reforms benefit everyone.
Nigerians will be able to see that a lot of fundamental reforms have been done within the past 3 years. We've been able to rejig our economic structure. Nigeria is on the pathway towards full recovery. Recovery has started. You can see what the inflation rates are, our GDP. What is important right now for Mr. President is for Nigerians to feel the impact of the reforms. Reforms are difficult. They get to a point where there's a turn and a trajectory where people feel it, and those important citizen center points would be felt within the next few months, and we can see that a lot of legacy projects have been started. A significant number of them have been completed, but we want to have the next 4 years as a time where we're going to consolidate on all the reforms that have been done so that the full gains of the democratic process and President Tinubu's Renewed Hope agenda will be felt by all Nigerians.
Now, the federal government is committed to building a resilient and sustainable economy driven by entrepreneurship, technology, and innovation. The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Taiwo Oyedele, was speaking at the launch of Southeast Venture Capital Program, initiated by the Southeast Development Commission in Enugu to fast-track development in the region. Chika Ogu has the report.
Southeast region represents one of Nigeria's most vibrant, entrepreneurial, resilient and innovative sectors. However, potentials without access to capital mentorship, marketing support, the region cannot achieve the desired growth. To this end, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu represented said the federal government is unlocking the region's full potentials by investing in human and infrastructural development.
Economic growth does not happen in isolation. Capital follows infrastructure. Enterprise follows connectivity. Investment follows confidence. That is why Mr. President has committed over 1.3 trillion naira to strategic road and bridge infrastructure across the Southeast.
Crafting what we call the Southeast Strategic Roadmap for the next 4 years. So I want to thank the chairman and the rest of the board members who, in made history, 1 day after we were settled, they approved the 3-year roadmap for the SCDC.
The The initiative complements the Enugu State government's agenda of growing the economy, creating jobs, supporting startups, and de-risking investments.
Government alone cannot create prosperity unless it deliberately creates the conditions that allow businesses to flourish.
Partners and investors restated commitment to the venture, which they believe will make the region become a leading innovation hub in Africa.
And a new report from the African Development Bank says Africa's trade finance gap has held above $74 billion annually in recent years as commercial banks continue to pull back from the continent. The FDB's flagship report published estimates the continent's unmet demand for trade finance ranged between $74 billion and $92 billion in 2024. Representing around 5.4% of Africa's total merchandise trade. The last AFDB survey showed that the average trade finance gap between 2011 and 2019 stood at $92.3 billion. However, the multilateral institution warned that commercial banks have continued to retreat from the continent in recent years, intermediating just 23% of trade over 2020 and 2024, down from 40% before the pandemic. The FDB says banks' rejection rates for trade finance applications also remained significantly high, particularly for MSMEs at 37% over the same period. Average MSMEs approved rates stood at just 63%, well below broader trade finance approval levels. And to tax matters, the African Tax Administration Forum, that is ATAF, has welcomed the Republic of Congo as its 45th member. The development followed the signing of the instrument of accession by Ludovic Itua at its receipt by the ATAF Executive Secretary, Mary Bien, in Brazzaville. ATAF said the Republic of Congo's accession marks a significant milestone in ATAF's mission to strengthen tax cooperation and domestic resource mobilization across the African continent. For Bien, Congo's accession strengthens the collective resolve to build stronger, more effective and more resilient tax administrations across Africa and looking to working closely with Congo in advancing domestic resource mobilization and ensuring that African countries continue to shape international tax discussions with a stronger and united voice. Naira depreciation blamed as Nigeria cancels $717.7 million World Bank power funding. How much is the Naira exchanging for other currencies at this point? Let's look at the numbers. Now to the conversation of the day. Youth unemployment in Nigeria poses a critical challenge driven by factors such as inadequate education, economic instability, and a lack of job opportunities. This issue not only hampers individual potential but also threatens the nation's economic growth and social stability. To address this, it requires comprehensive strategies, including government initiatives on skills training to empower young people and enhance their employability. Earlier, my colleague, Maria Ado Zakari, had a conversation with a development economist, Kola Wole Kainde, on issues around youth unemployment in Nigeria, the causes, solutions, and possible impacts. Let's take a listen.
What are the primary factors contributing to youth unemployment, particularly here in Nigeria?
Youth unemployment in Nigeria, it's a combination of so many factors. You know that while some advanced countries are witnessing declining birth rates, Nigeria and some countries in sub-Saharan Africa are witnessing explosive birth rates. When you put that together, you know that it's just a matter of time. That means more people, more children are being given birth to in Nigeria than in some parts of the world, like let's say in the UK. And that means that there will be more people that are growing towards that level. About a third of Nigerian population is between the age of 1 and 24. And you could, in the next 20 years, you know that it could increase to about 40% of the Nigerian population. What that means is if there are no infrastructure, if jobs, there are no formal jobs, and we know the current administration making frantic efforts to ensure that they expand the formal sector, but there needs to be a lot to do about the informal sector. So one of the things that the challenge of youth employment is that there are very few jobs available for the youths, one, in the formal sector as well as in the informal sector.
So now talking about formal and informal, can we see our educational system prepares youth of today for the job market?
You will, if you've been following the educational sector, about 3 months or so, we had a review of the school curriculum, and that was really widely accepted by experts and policy analysts all over the nation, because we discovered that most of the programs, courses that we find in the university have become obsolete. And we also discovered that if we want to industrialize the Nigerian people, the Nigerian economy, it's important that we relook at our curriculum, which we have already done, and try to put some programs that will help youth develop competent, relevant, and future-ready skills going forward. Currently, our Nigerian educational system is going through a transition, and we hope that over the next decade, we can be able to create a quantum number of jobs from this policy shift that the Nigerian government has embarked on. Apart from that, I also believe strongly that the private sector is also expanding exponentially, especially the creative and, of course, the service sector. We hope that this will create also more jobs for youths, and basically we need to start looking at how youths are very much sucked into the digital technology and digital economy.
So with the curriculum upgrade you mentioned, what reforms are needed in Nigeria's educational system and at a broader level to equip youths with relevant jobs needed? And how do we implement those reforms?
The reforms are ongoing, as I rightly mentioned. The first is looking at the curriculum, which is the most foundational. When you look at the curriculum, you see how relevant it is to the realities of the market. I know that about a decade ago, most people in the private sector, most employers in the private sector will say that Nigerian youths are unemployable, and because the kind of courses or studies or knowledge they get is not what is really needed in the market. You see a computer science student that never got to interface with a computer and now is at the computer engineering firm, and it doesn't have a clue of what it needs to do, and that cuts across so many industries, so many sectors. But now we are ensuring that the Nigerian government is ensuring that they do digital first. That means leveraging technology. But we have a challenge with technology, energy, paucity of energy, paucity of infrastructure, and the dwindling revenue that are coming into the government coffers, at least from the reports that you made earlier on, you've seen that we had revenue leakage. And, you know, this have a cause and effect on what is available for education. If you look at the budgets for education in 2026, it still doesn't meet the UNESCO benchmark of 15%. And of course, that means that a whole lot still needs to be done. As I was coming today, I heard that the federal government has also made an embargo on the creation of universities. As at last year, about 33 universities were created. What that means is that the number of students willing to even go to private or public tertiary education is much more higher than the number of tertiary educations that are available in the country. Now, it's not also a question of availability. It's a question of sustainability in terms of creating the right resources, bringing the right resources, putting the right manpower in terms of lecturers, putting the right resources, equipment, facilities, and making sure that these places are habitable and are conducive for learning. There is still a whole lot that the government is trying to do. Another thing the government has done is to revamp the TVET, that means Tertiary Vocational and Educational Technology. And I think one of the programs the government also embarked when they started was the 3MTT. I don't know whether we're creating 3 million tech jobs over a period of years. And if the government sustains some of these programs, I think one will be able to develop digital skills, because the youths actually need digital skills. That's important. That means they will work without boundaries, and that is what the world is tilting to now. Currently, 90% of the youths run the hustle economy. You know, the hustle economy that is run within the social media and all of those things. And well, it has its pros. There are so many cons to it too. So the government should look at how to balance and also provide support that will make youths employable, and that will create jobs for youths to get into.
So we've been hopeful, and then looking into the future, what are the barriers to starting a business?
The ease of doing business in Nigeria, well, it's getting much more easier. One, of course, business structuring. The first is you want to know where you want to play. Are you going to play as a business name, as a limited? Are you going to go into a partnership? And all of those things. Those are fundamental to know. Then what kind of business do you want to get involved with? Do you have mentors, coaches? Do you have access to finance, access to markets? How are you going to be competitive? These are the issues that are there for businesses. Of course, access to finance is one of the challenges of SMEs, but away from access to finance, I think capacity itself and meeting market needs at the right price. I think these are some fundamentals that we need to look at. We don't have to forget the fact that we still have low production of energy. Energy at 5,000, 7,000 megawatts will not take us anywhere. We should be looking at 20,000 megawatts, and you know that's quite ambitious, but I know that the government should currently doing that. You see that the decentralization of power generation, that means states can generate their power. It will also, we hope, will create a pivot to dependence on government, the federal government, to do all of these things. I think now that the states have more resources, they should also prioritize the intervention that they need to develop for their youths. Because you also mentioned the World Bank is talking about migration. There's going to be migration, because there will be migration from high populated area to low populated area. Young people are still going to migrate to where the population are declining. I'm talking about Japan, even in China, talking about Europe. You will not run away from it, but it is important that while we're doing that, we don't also cause brain drain. You know that a lot of expats have left the shores of Nigeria, and some of them are not bringing those learning, that technology, and even funding back to the country. So while we are suffering brain drain, we also have to look at how we can also turn it to brain gain, and these are the things the government needs to look at.
I think I love that. Thank you for breaking this down.
Oh, that was a conversation with Mr. Kainde Kolawole. Now moving on, Dangote Petroleum Refinery has reversed its earlier diesel price reduction, increasing the ex-depot price of automotive gas oil, that is AGO, from 1,600 per litre to 1,700 per litre. The refinery announced that the revised price will take effect from May 27, 2026, marking a swift turnaround from its previous downward adjustment that had raised hopes of lower cost for businesses and transport operators. The latest move comes amid rising global crude oil prices and growing concerns about the impacts of sudden price changes on fuel traders as well as wider downstream petroleum market. Still on energy, oil prices jumped about 2% in early Thursday trading after Reuters reported fresh U.S. strikes overnight on an Iranian military site, escalating tensions, even as Washington and Tehran negotiated to end their 3-month conflict. Brent crude futures rose $1.90 to $96.19 a barrel, while the more active August contract gained $1.64 to $93.89. The July contract is set to expire on Friday, and the U.S. West Texas Intermediate futures were actually up $1.73 at $90.41. Both benchmarks slipped more than 5% to touch their lowest in a month. In the previous session on the possibility of a U.S.-Iran deal to end their war and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Now, cocoa prices dipped as Ivory Coast raises crop forecast and West Africa rains improve outlook. Let's now take a trip to the commodities market. And talking stocks, the Nigerian Exchange Group and the Nairobi Securities Exchange are moving to tighten ties and accelerate Africa's capital market integration. NGX Group Chairman Umaru Koiranga met with NSC Chairman Kikono Kitoni in Nairobi, where both leaders underscored the urgency of stronger collaboration among African exchanges to boost liquidity, competitiveness, and global relevance. Koiranga hailed the Nairobi Stock Exchange, East Africa's largest exchange with more than 160 listed equities, as a critical gateway to regional capital flows. He stressed that cooperation was no longer aspirational but increasingly necessary as Africa advances economic integration. And a look at the global markets. Asia-Pacific markets opened lower this Thursday as investors continue to assess mixed signals from ongoing Iran-US negotiations amid a fragile ceasefire. This is where we end today's edition of Business Express. We do value your feedback, so keep the comments, observations, and suggestions coming. Be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on NTA's social media platforms. Business Express returns tomorrow.